Today we're going to talk about Trump and Republicans taking an axe to our healthcare system and our economy, but what the Democrats can learn from it. And I've got two interviews this week. I sit down with Senator Elizabeth Warren to discuss the House budget bill that'll gut that healthcare and food assistance for tens of millions of Americans, and Attorney Norm Eisen about a major update on the legal front. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're watching No Lie. So there are two things happening at once here, both of which put on full display where Trump and Republicans' priorities lie. The first is that the House just passed a budget bill that'll take healthcare away from 13.7 million Americans, that'll strip $300 billion from food assistance, eliminates clean energy tax credits, and restricts a bunch of student loan subsidies, all in service of the second thing, which is that it pays for tax cuts that will overwhelmingly benefit the ultra-wealthy. According to the Penn Wharton analysis, people making between about $17,000 and $51,000 could lose about $700 on average. People reporting less than $17,000 in income would see a reduction closer to $1,000 on average. By contrast, the top 0.1%, including those with incomes over $4.3 million, would gain on average more than $389,000 in after-tax income in 2026. In other words, hundreds of thousands of dollars in giveaways for the richest Americans and a net loss in after-tax income for the working class. And of course, that's exacerbated by the fact that food assistance and healthcare programs on which these people rely will be gutted. And of course, that is on top of the fact that Trump is swimming in just overt corruption, raking in money from his crypto venture, doubling his net worth to $5.4 billion. He's accepting a $400 million jet from Qatar. He's allowing Elon Musk to pay voters to bribe them into voting for Republicans, firing inspectors general, making a carve-out for silencers in the same bill where they gut healthcare, and on and on and on. And of course, when discussing the political implications of all of this, it's pretty obvious that this is political suicide. I mean, the last time the Republicans went after healthcare, that was back in 2017, they lost the midterms by the biggest margin in modern American history, lost 41 seats in the House in 2018. And they're doing the exact same thing with Medicaid as they did with the ACA. And we're already seeing special election results that directly mirror 2017. Back then, there was an average 11-point swing to the left. In the nearly 24 races held since November 2024, Democrats are benefiting from an average 11-point swing to the left, so an identical swing. And these Republicans, look, they're no dummies. They understand the stakes here. They were all around in 2018. They saw what happened to their party then. They can see what's happening right now. And I know that anybody with sense is asking why they would do this. And the answer to that question, I think, is really, really important. It's that Republicans are clear about what they want. And what they want, as they've shown us over and over again, is a tax cut. And they will give themselves that tax cut, and they will refuse to let anything stand in their way, even if it means their own prospects in midterms. Because when they gain power, they make sure to use it to get what they want. And they know that, look, worst case scenario, they lose some seats in the next election. But our politics are cyclical. They'll win again. They always do. I mean, hell, Trump incited a fucking insurrection, and his party refused to lift a finger to hold him accountable, and they were in the wilderness for all of one cycle. That's it. These assholes tried to hang their own vice president, assassinate Nancy Pelosi, and within 4 years, they again had full control of government. They get into power and they exercise that power to get exactly what they want, no matter what they have to break to get it. Which honestly should be a lesson for the Democrats, because while the Republicans will stop at nothing to accomplish their agenda, the Democrats seemingly will let everything stand in their way. Whether it's the filibuster or the parliamentarian or some arbitrary procedural hurdle, we don't have national voting rights legislation right now because Democrats felt that it was necessary to defend the filibuster, as if that's what they were elected to defend. A norm from a bygone era that isn't even binding. One that Republicans already nuked when it comes to their own priorities of tax cuts and judges. No filibuster for those things. But we decided to voluntarily keep it in place because, God forbid, we don't protect our norms and institutions, even if it means allowing our democracy to die in the process. Talk about missing the forest for the trees. And that's the sad reality of our party. Democrats all too often defend the procedures of government instead of exercising power in the rare instances they have it. And unlike Trump and Republicans, Democrats can actually exercise that power in a virtuous way. They can strengthen healthcare. They can increase the minimum wage. They can codify abortion rights. Look, it is so rare that we're in a position to actually wield power. Why are we not exercising it to its fullest extent when we get it? Like, we're so worried about potential backlash at some untold point in the future. But so what? Worst case, we lose an election. Who cares? A, we'll get it back. And B, ironically enough, the best way to actually make the case to the American people to vote for you is literally exercising that power and doing something. So I know that this, in a weird way, may seem perverse, but I hope that Democrats are paying attention to what Trump and Republicans are doing right now. Because if they can learn anything, it's that there is no excuse not to exercise power when we get it. And that rather than fear the consequences of doing something, what we should actually fear is the consequences of not doing it. When it comes to these tax cuts, they're always structured this way. Like, we don't have tax cuts we don't have the elusive middle class tax cut or the working class tax cut that's so often promised. It always ends up being a tax cut that's going to help the wealthy. And so there is this sense of, okay, well, this is the best we've got. And so even with the 2017 tax cut, if there was some tangential benefit, if the lowest earners in this country, if the working poor in this country get a few $100s, and granted, it's crumbs compared to the hundreds of thousands of dollars that the highest earners get, still there's this sense that, okay, well, a few $100s is still better than nothing, and so we'll just swallow it. And so like there is this sense of, okay, we have to be happy with the crumbs that we're being given, because the alternative is no crumbs at all. And so I'm curious if you can speak to that idea. Sure. that we have become normalized to and accustomed to this idea that, yes, it's crumbs. We know it's crumbs. We know it pales in comparison to what the highest earners in this country are getting, but that's how it goes. And so it's better than nothing. Right.
So let me give two answers. First answer is, this one isn't even crumbs.
This is taking away. Correct.
We are actually the Republicans are going to pick your pocket. You're actually going to end up poorer with this bill. So the crumbs analogy no longer holds here. But let's do the second part. And that is, this ain't over. People have power. And when we talk about the fight right now in the House, listen, part of it is the Republicans are even more extreme, saying more babies need to lose health care, more people need to go hungry. But there's a bunch of other Republicans saying, wait just a minute, we're all going to be up for re-election in 2026. And starting to do a little of the, maybe we should have cold feet about this. So this is the moment for people to pick up the phone, to get on email, to text their representatives in the House. And this is true whether your reps are Democrats or Republicans. Call them, text them, email them. And if you've already done that once, do it again. Do it again and do it again. Because it is in play right now. So nobody has to accept this is how it always is. The ball is in the air, right? And where this is going to come down is literally in the fight in Washington, D.C., on Capitol Hill, as you and I speak. This is the moment to get involved in that fight.
How does this get resolved as far as the Republicans are concerned? Because already you have deep cuts, and you've got one faction who says, okay, we can't completely explode the deficit beyond repair, and so we have to have deeper cuts here to try and offset some of these tax cuts that, God forbid, we take out. Like they all agree that we need tax cuts for the ultra wealthy, and so it's a matter of passing the bill as it stands right now, or trying to salvage some part of the deficit, but that means deeper cuts on the other side to offset those tax cuts, which means deeper cuts to healthcare, deeper cuts to food stamps. And so you have these competing factions here in the Republican Party, where you have the quasi deficit hawks, who at least are pretending that they care about the deficit, but then you have but that's going to open up the other problem, which is, okay, now you've got to contend with the people who have to go back to their districts and say, it's not just, 20% of Medicaid recipients that are going to get screwed over. Now it's going to be 25%. Now it's going to be 30%. Now it's going to be 40%.
Brian, you just keep wanting to bring reality into this conversation.
Right. My mistake.
It just shows the kind of guy you are. But that's part of the problem. Part of what's happening here is, can they bend Americans' perception of reality? Right? This is what the president did. The president went over there yesterday and said, we're going to make all these cuts, and don't worry about it. We're not even going to touch health care. answer
Right,
is
he said we're not going to touch healthcare. You're going to have more healthcare. They asked him about food assistance. He goes, you're going to have more food assistance. And so there's this. It's Earth too. We're living in the upside down right now, where they are
exactly
cutting these things, but then he's claiming that somehow not only are they not being cut, they're going to be more plentiful.
right. So the number one thing to do is keep talking about reality and holding them to reality. The second thing is they really want to turn away from who's going to get hurt. So I think of this. I was thinking today about, you remember the Roadrunner cartoons? Remember the bomb
Yeah.
that you would buy, right, from Acme,
Yep.
right? That what they want to do is they want to do a bomb with a really long fuse. And they want to say, we're going to cut healthcare for millions of Americans, and we're going to cut food help for millions of Americans. But we know that that is going to be terrible for millions of families, and it's going to be terrible for the economy. So we're going to pass the law now, light the fuse, and it's not going to explode mostly until right after the election.
Yeah.
That way, we can do the deny reality. We can all go out, and all of those Republicans can campaign saying, nope, nobody got hurt here. Did anybody get hurt here? Nobody's been hurt. Stop being so hysterical about this, and try to bend reality. But understand about these cuts. They're going to hit literally tens of millions of families. They're going to hit new babies, half of all new babies who are going to lose access to healthcare, new mamas, people with disabilities, little babies, children with disabilities, seniors who need access to their nursing homes. But here's one more part. When you start cutting off access to medical care for those folks, what happens? Well, the first thing that happens, they don't go to the doctor. And when they don't go to the doctor, they end up, some of them are going to end up sicker. And that means they go to the hospital. Hospital treats everybody because that's what hospitals are. But now they don't get compensated for that care. I mean, you can't squeeze blood out of a turnip, right?
Right.
The people don't have the money. So who's going to end up paying? Community hospitals, rural hospitals, hospitals that you may go to and you may still have health insurance, but having health insurance coverage is not going to help you if you start to have chest pains or you are in a car accident and there's no hospital nearby to
Right.
take care of
Right.
you. So we have to think of every one of these cuts. Man, it's terrible for the family, but it's terrible for our communities. It starts to break our healthcare delivery system overall. Billionaires, they'll do fine with their concierge medicine. But for everybody else, the system starts to break down and hurt us all.
We had a major move by the Trump administration yesterday where they decided that they would basically expel a whole quarter of Harvard University's class by saying that any international students can no longer, their visas no longer apply. That move was immediately challenged in court by Harvard. We have an update here. Can you explain what just happened?
The court threw out the immediate effort of the Trump administration to punish Harvard, Brian. It's pure retaliation. The court said, of course you can't do that. Temporary restraining order, stop. So they threw it out for now. There's going to be more litigation. A fast move by the Trump administration, and an even faster move to shut down this act of revenge and retaliation and punishing these international students who did nothing wrong.
And so, Norm, do you find it unusual that the court moved so quickly in this instance?
Uh, no. If Donald Trump is going to impose authoritarianism by shock and awe, then the defenders of the Constitution and laws, the courts and the litigators, because the courts don't act for themselves, Brian. Harvard rushed to court with great lawyers, and they got an immediate counterpunch that was just as strong as what Trump tried to do, even stronger, because they stopped him. This is because Harvard won't bow down like those big law firms did, like
Right.
big mainstream media did, and kiss Trump's ring and comply. No, they're not going to change their First Amendment protected operations as a university. Good for them. Good for the courts for a super quick reply. The lives of these 7,000 students were thrown into chaos. Harvard was turned upside down. We needed a fast court order. I yesterday said to everyone, this is not going to fly. It's going to be shut down. And the courts proved that that was right. There was really no question about it. It's so grotesque.
And so how permanent is this ruling? And how much, I guess, clarification do these international students actually have?
Well, the ruling is titled temporary restraining order. So by definition,
okay, well, I guess that answers that question.
By definition,
and so in that case, is this going to be further litigated in the courts?
Yes, but I think that in this case, temporary is a misnomer because the legal foundation for this is that under the Administrative Procedures Act, the government, if they make a unconstitutional decision or an illegal one or an irrational one that is out of hatred and spite and revenge because Harvard won't go along with Trump's authoritarian dictatorial project, come on. The law says you can't do that. I feel so confident because this decision by the administration was so ill-founded that this will not fly. There's no basis to do it. Look, if there's a couple of people at Harvard who have overstepped bounds, if they have violated rules in protests, if they're anti-Semitic, what have you, go to court. But you know what, Brian? Those efforts have been failing too, where the Trump administration has been trying to deport individuals, sometimes abducting them to far off states, individual students. The courts have said, no, the First Amendment protects that too. So Trump is losing, and he's going to keep on losing in this case, and that's going to be permanent.
To watch the full interviews with Elizabeth Warren and Norm Eisen, click the thumbnails right here on the screen or check out the interviews playlist on my YouTube channel. You can also click the link on the screen to listen to the audio version of this episode, and of course to see more of my content, the subscribe button's on the screen as well.